Welcome to the road to greatness. Get ready to be inspired and empowered to take your career to the next level. Let's talk about it.
Hi, and welcome to the Road to Greatness. I am your host, Carlin Kiefer, and this week we are focusing on relationship building. What we've heard so far in previous episodes, we've heard a lot of people talk about how part of their pathway to success, part of their road to greatness includes meeting great people, hanging on to great people, and connecting great people. So, in the spirit of what we're trying to do here on the road to greatness, I am bringing in a master connector. His name is Jeff Harrison. Jeff is a master connector in the spirit of connecting organizations, connecting people, but looking for mutually beneficial relationships. And I don't want to say any more, Jeff. I want to let you take the floor on that. So first, welcome and tell us how you build your relationship path to greatness.
Well, you talked about relationships. Your mom is actually the one who connected us. I was new at my first full-time job at USTA Middle States, and your mom was nice enough to take me under her wing. And I've never worked in an office environment before, and without knowing it at the time, we built a relationship of you and I are similar ages, and I think she felt a comfortable level of helping somebody get started in their career. And without knowing it at the time, we were building a relationship. And really fast forward a couple of years, my first true, real full-time year-round job outside of Middle States was working for the great Billie JeanKing.
Amazing.
Amazing.
That's a heck of a number two, right?
Yeah, right.
I went
exactly.
from just working to then Billie Jean King.
From Joan Lothry to Billie Jean King. But there's a powerful relationships who people care about you. And I remember my first week on the job with Billie Jean. I'm 25 years old, and she said, "Jeff, relationships are the key to life." And at 25 years old, you're pondering what that actually means. But as I grew in my career and I grew my relationship with Billie and others, I clearly understood what it meant. It's getting comfortable with somebody, not always about me, but it's about them. It's learning about what makes someone tick, what makes someone great. And listen, the greatest of them all in Billie Jean King, what makes her tick? And so I learned and listened, and I asked a lot of questions. I wanted to know what made her tick. But really, she didn't have to learn about me, but she did. She wanted to know I played tennis in college. She wanted to know my girlfriend at the time, who became my wife. We got to connect through the relationship of tennis. I remember Mary and I, my wife and I, we had just started to tell people we were pregnant with our first child. And we had just told family, and Billie happened to be over at the house. And she was so excited that she was there from the beginning of a new chapter in our lives. This relationship of becoming from a kid to becoming a dad. And fast forward many years later, my son interned for Billie this summer at some tennis events. And so that relationship stays strong. You don't realize you're building it, but I think it has to be mutual. You have to learn about each other. Otherwise, it's a selfish relationship. It's me, me, me. And it's really about us getting to know each other for sure.
Yeah, and so there's a little bit of jealousy going on over here. Billie Jean King is in your house. Like, what? And I will say, and I'm going to point her out right here. Wait, where is she? Right there. Me and Billie Jean King. You can't tell from this far away. But the first time she said my name out loud, I was like, oh, she said my name. I mean, it was utterly amazing. But enough about me. Let's talk about you. So, but I want to go on the relationship piece and tie that into all that you're doing and all that you have done or did do with Billie and Women's Sports Foundation, but then also with the USTA and what you're doing now in terms of, and what you said you ask a lot of questions, you're genuinely curious and trying to get to know people regardless. And so for those at home who don't know, so Jeff talked about he started working at 25 or met met my mom when he was 25, and she was probably somewhere in the ballpark of 55 at the time. So and actually no, she was almost 60 at that point. So building relationships with people who are older, same age group, difference, it really doesn't matter. Relationships are important between all people, right? And so it's that genuine curiosity and thinking about just getting to know someone in a holistic standpoint. So how does that play in you're trying to match companies with other organizations that are trying to help people? I'm going to have you describe that a little bit more, because that's partially a passion, but also something you're fantastic at.
Oh, well, thank you. Again, I'm curious to build a relationship, and everyone says, Jeff, gosh, for 30 years, you've been raising money. Don't you get sick of asking people for money? It's one of the toughest things to do. And I don't think I've ever really truly asked someone for money. I've built a relationship and learned what makes them tick to try to connect them with something that might be important to them. I hate to be the person that walks in the room and says, oh my gosh, there's Jeff, he's asking for money. I'd rather be known as the person who's, oh my gosh, there's Jeff. I can have a pure conversation with him, and we can find some touch points that make it work for both of us. And so my 30-year career of raising money, it's really about relationship building and storytelling and connecting the dots. I remember just an early on deal that I did many years ago was with the Hershey Company. And gosh, everyone knows Hershey, the sweetest place on earth.
My stomach, my waist, my
right?
thighs all know Hershey really well.
We all know Hershey. We all know Hershey well. But there was a headline in the Philadelphia Inquirer a few years ago. Instead of the sweetest place on earth, it was the whitest place on earth. Ooh. And it created a little controversy for the company. Hershey is based in Hershey, Pennsylvania, Lancaster, Central Pennsylvania. I wouldn't call it one of the most diverse areas of the country. But at the time I was working for Billie Jean, and I was always being drilled into my head, equality, gender equity, race equity, equality just in general. And we ran an event called the Elton John AIDS Foundation called Smash Hits. It was Elton John's celebrity tennis fundraiser. Believe it or not, Elton plays some great tennis. And I used just relationships. A tennis pro that taught at the Hershey Racket Club introduced me to the head of marketing at Hershey's. And I got in there, explained about what we're doing at World Team Tennis, gender equity, and this thing called Smash Hits. And it benefited the Elton John AIDS Foundation. And I learned that Hershey got most of their cocoa beans, if not all their cocoa beans, from Africa. Well, Elton was doing a huge push in Africa to prevent the spread of AIDS. And again, through the relationship building and the connecting of the dots,
right.
We pitched the Hershey Company on two things: is one, support the Elton John AIDS Foundation and Smash Hits, and two is there's no better spokesperson than diversity and inclusion than Billie Jean King.
Absolutely.
So this was about 20 years ago, and they hired their first D&I employee that I got to meet and work with on this event. For really, at the end of the day, it's equality, right? When you play World Team Tennis, it's boys and girls, men and women on the same team. And we brought diverse athletes to Hershey, Pennsylvania, the James Blakes of the world and the Shonda Rubins. And these were phenomenal tennis players of color for the first time really in Hershey. And the D&I department was formed at Hershey a lot because of what we were doing there. And it's something, I'm proud of. But again, it came through a relationship. I wasn't thinking, well, let's just find a big company, throw some money at a tennis event. It was a relationship locally that connected me with the right people. I don't think the head of marketing would have taken my call if it wasn't for a relationship connecting the dots. And so, when someone does that for me, I realize how important it is for me to do to anyone who asks me. The worst thing you could do is someone asking for help and the answer is no. Sometimes you'll not be able to. It's just reality of life. But at least try, because we all need each other.
Absolutely. And I love this piece on the, we hear all the time, it's not what you know, it's who you know. I would argue it's actually both,
Yeah.
because you have to know all the right things. And one of my former bosses, Robert Musselwhite, used to say, you've got to be super prepared so that when your time to be lucky shows up, you're ready to step into that point. So it's never you're destined to, and all the hard work in the world won't necessarily get you there unless you have that little bit of luck to push you over the edge. And so for you, it sounds like it's getting to know people, right? That's part of the preparation. And then it's so that when your lucky break, I have this relationship and wow, look, now I can connect this dot, albeit however long after you make the initial hello. There is the opportunity to step in. So it's some of the who you know, and it's some of the what you know. When you put the two together, success is on its way, right? Greatness starts to happen in the
There you
world of the
go.
road to greatness.
Connecting greatness. We're
Yeah.
all great on some level. It's just helping us get there for sure.
Yeah, and so would you say that Hershey sounds like that's the biggest, or that was kind of the crown or the jewel in the crown kind of thing for you? Is there another big relationship moment that stands out for you?
Yeah, at the time, right, Hershey was so important again as a household name, and then in recent years, getting to know the family and the team around Jersey Mike Subs. They are an amazing philanthropic company, giving away millions and millions to charity. And again, through a relationship, I was introduced to them about 5 years ago. At the time they had maybe 1,500 franchises. Fast forward 5 years later, they're at 3,000. They're just a fast growing, energetic company. But as I got to know them, the reason they're growing and they're growing strong is the people they have around them. Peter Cancro, the founder of Jersey Mike's, started when he was 16 years old. Got a loan from his high school football coach to buy his first sub shop.
Wow.
It's a true American story, but a relationship connected us. And one of the great things I was able to do as far as relationship building with Peter, he's a Jersey guy, right? Born and raised in Point Pleasant, New Jersey, and I'm a Jersey guy. Went to high school, grew up, still have a place in New Jersey, and that was our connection, right? Jersey guys stick together, Jersey people, Jersey women.
Hackensack, New Jersey, just saying.
Hackensack, there you go. And it's a great connection. Peter's wife, Tatiana, is a tennis player. Her son played tennis growing up, started in some grassroots programs. So it's in your blood. And I think when you meet somebody that are like-minded, that want to help people for their pure philanthropic good, they don't want a thing. They want to help people. And that's a beautiful thing about a relationship, because sometimes they can be lopsided, right? They can be transactional. And that happens in life. There's business transactions. But I will tell you, one of the most purest families and companies out there has been Jersey Mike's. They really just want to help people, and their level of giving from cancer to hospitals to youth.
Yeah, and I know that during March Madness, they always promote their campaign for their one day of giving. Whatever money you spend in a Jersey Mike's on that particular day, it goes 100% to whatever the charity of choice is at the time, which I always think is fantastic. And the fact that they're so open to promote that and show, hey, this is how we're not just that we're making subs, but we're making our mark in the community as well. We're a partner.
You said it so right, Carlin, for sure. It starts from the top. It starts from the CEO saying we're a philanthropic company. And all the franchises, independently owned franchises, have the choice, and 100% opt in. The last Wednesday of every March, they raised over $20 million this year for local charities that mean something in their community. But again, it starts at the top. It's relationship building, and it's these franchises, right, believing in their leader, that this is the right thing to do. And again, that's the definition of relationship. It was when you're comfortable with each other.
Yeah.
Again, not asking for money, but showing an opportunity to help others.
Fantastic. So We talked about it's the what and the who, let's talk a little bit more on the what. And what you're doing, I have to imagine that it's more than just the relationship with the who, that there's some background research that you have to be doing. Talk to me more about what the process is in terms of you've identified someone who really can be a partner to someone else, or hey, this is a target for you for sponsorship or something else. What's that process to learn more, to be really deep rooted so that you can make all the right talking point connections? And I'll say that with the preface that there are a lot of people in sales who just, catch the soundbite and then do a hard pitch and then wonder why after the fact, well, why did I miss, right?
Yeah.
I had the soundbite. What's the other background and the process that you go through?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I've been fortunate. I've been primarily in the philanthropic giving over the years, but some in the for-profit business, but always in sports and primarily in tennis. And so I'm blessed with this tool of being able to still hit the tennis ball pretty well and play tennis at a high level in college. I do, first of all, look for somebody who's one, philanthropic, cares about people or their community, but really who are passionate about the sport, whether it's tennis or golf or football. But in my case, tennis. And I love getting people on the tennis court. I know a lot of, everyone says, oh, a lot of business is done on the golf course. Yeah, over 4 hours, you might get a lot of business done. You also might get sick of the person, but in a power hour of
tennis.
Have you been stuck with someone for 4 hours? It's sometimes painful.
Yes.
There's only so much you can talk about unless you're really talented golfer and you're talking about holes in ones or pars. But really, when I get somebody on the tennis court, I'm looking for a few things. One is, do they take care of themselves, right? Are they fit? They want to get better? Because usually if they want to get better on the court, they usually want to get better as a person. Are they inviting their spouse or their kids to join the hit? Are they saying only weekdays because my weekends are sacred because I have family? And very quickly you start picking up on the keys, what makes somebody tick, what's important to them by not even asking. And then when you're on the tennis court, you see who's got a little fire in the belly, who wants to learn, who wants to shoot the bull. Again, it's the power of sports. I think that you can't do over a lunch or a cup of coffee sometimes. Of course you can, but you really learn about somebody pretty quickly when you're on the tennis court with them, whether you're playing singles or doubles. See how they interact with their doubles partner. Are they cursing at them or are they encouraging them?
Hopefully not cursing.
Yeah, well, there's certainly some of that fire in the belly that happens that way. But all those key indicators, I love looking for, so we know where to take the conversation from a philanthropic side.
So then let's break that down a little, because I think that's the part where I'm going, okay, so yay, I invited my spouse to come sit and watch me play, or my kids. What does that tell you for, like, if I were to use that exact example, how do you leverage that, use that to make a move? And that is to say, on the philanthropic side.
So usually when they bring a spouse, if I'm playing tennis with a woman or playing tennis with a man and they bring their spouse, you know they want their spouse to be involved in the philanthropic or the business decision. They're not saying it, but they do. And so I've played tennis with some men that bring their wives, and they turn it over to the wife and say, what makes you tick a little bit too? So now you're talking to two individuals, or do their kids play tennis, or do their kids play sports? Is academics important to them? Is staying physically fit important to them? But at the core crux, I think when you bring your spouse or kids to anything, it shows you care and you love them and you have a good, healthy relationship internally, never mind externally. Because I think if you have a good relationship internally with your spouse or your family, whatnot, you tend to be able to build relationships externally as well. And listen, there's some clients I've never met a spouse or a kid. Doesn't make it wrong, but the ones who include their family, gosh, we just become so much closer.
So let's take that on the flip side then. So for the folks that you say, hey, look, I've never met their kids. I don't know who their spouse is. I don't even know any of that stuff. Um, how does that change your angle on how you approach them on, because obviously they're still clients, obviously they're still, they're either providing sponsorships or some other piece of that relationship. What does that look like in terms of, okay, well, they're not really inclusive on the home front, so I'm going to now take this angle when I'm pitching or presenting?
Yeah, I'm going to take the angle. This is a business relationship, and that's totally fine. And then you bring the partners in, or you bring the assistant in, or the marketing people, and then you bring the relationships within the individual's company a little bit more involved, so you can get to know them. I've had more assistants tell me the right time to speak to Joe or Sally because, boy, the stock is up, or a big deal just happened, and I've had them be very honest. Jeff, this is not the day. This is not the week. Maybe take a step back. And so they're all part. Their team is part of the relationship building. And I love when the assistant or the colleague gives me a little bit of direction, because the worst is if someone's having a tough week, the stock is down, or whatnot, and you're going in and saying, hey, this is a great opportunity to maybe up your donation, or I got a great idea for you.
And they just tanked on Wall Street.
they tanked in everything, right?
Yeah.
Or they just had a little eye surgery, give a couple weeks, whatever it is. Again, if it's not the home you're including, you're definitely including the business relationship, because at the end of the day, you have your work life and your home life. There's that saying, there's your work wife or your work husband, and it's true. When you spend a lot of time with people, they get to know you and they know your ebbs and flows pretty well. I always like to think there's one decision maker, but it's at the end of the day, there's always a team of relationships helping any decision.
Yeah. There are a couple of things that we talked about before we actually went on the air was around the fact that you are also very mindful around making sure it's the right fit.
Yeah.
And so part of that is also, you might go into something thinking, hey, this is what we're going to do. This is what I'm thinking will be the right fit. And then you learn something about that individual or about that organization, and you go, oh, whoa, that's actually not the angle I want to take right now. And so pivoting. And so one of the other common threads, I think, throughout all of our conversations on the road to greatness is that the importance of being able to pivot, the importance of having that mind agility to be able to say, oh, wow, new information. Next, or not even next, let's give up. It's next, let's figure out what the next action is, or the next play would be. So for you, when you realize, oh, hey, you know what? I thought this person would be a great fit for this one thing, or this organization would be a great fit for this one event or one relationship that I'm working on. And actually, no. And so then you have to pivot. What does that look like? And how are you prepared for that pivot?
Yeah, I'll steal another one of Billie Jean's lines. Champions adjust, and if you're champion on any level, you're always adjusting, right? If you're in a tennis match and you thought their backhand was weak, and you start pounding the backhand, but they're passing on every shot, you're like, all right, I got to adjust a little bit too. My favorite thing about relationships is that I've built a lot of them over the years, that if I see something from my primary business is not going in the right direction, and it's not going to go the right direction, I love being able to pivot and say, you know what, you might be better off calling my friend Joe and Sally Smith at this organization. I think this might fit your philanthropic needs a little better. Not on a commission, not on a referral basis. It's because it's the right thing to do. If we're really trying to help the person in front of you, try to find the right fit. And if it's not with what you're working on, I think it's part of my duty as a relationship builder to help other relationships. And so if I'm finding something is not going right, and I'm going on a pure tennis angle, and we find out, kids all dropped out of tennis and they hate the sport, and it might not work. Through the course of the conversation, you figure out what might work. And it might be just a simple relationship handoff to someone that can make it work, which has happened quite a bit. Again, being in this philanthropic world, in the sports world for 30 years, I love connecting people to see if things work out. It's my favorite thing in the world to see someone's relationship become a success in a different way, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. There's and so you quote Billie Jean. I'm going to quote Kenny Rogers. You got to know when to fold them.
Yeah, know when to fold them.
You got to know when
and he
to
was a
fold
tennis
them.
player.
Maybe.
I think it's right. Sometimes it's just things don't work, and it's okay. I'll give the analogy in baseball. You're not going to throw a no-hitter every time. There's going to be some hits and some runs, but as long as you keep your fundamental in front of you, you're fine.
Yeah. It's interesting that your path. And so what I'll say in the observation is in listening to you speak and tell the stories of the relationships and who got you into which door, and how you're connecting dots to all these amazing people, organizations, opportunities, et cetera, and the philanthropy side. So you're also making the world a better place at the same time. One thing that is interesting to me is that a lot of people who are excelling, and a lot of our listeners and viewers are in the sales role in some way, shape, or form. And they think that it really is, I'm going to go research all the little factoids, the data points, everything there is to know about their business. And they forget that people don't do business with business. People do business with people. And they have to, and if they don't like, as you said, if they don't like someone, chances are they're going to, pass on the opportunity to do something bigger and better and beyond with that, just for the simple fact of, I'm totally botching this up, so I'm going to edit this later. It'll be fine. So the data points, but it is, sorry, let's try that again. And one big piece is really, it's bigger, or not even bigger or more important, but it's as important. And I think that's the part in business where we give short shrift, right? We always focus on being most informed about all the little business details, and we forget that there's a personal side, a personal win, a personal attachment to things, and a personal value for that matter. Are there questions that you find bring out the personal value more so than others? Or is it just, we're just talking and I'm observing, and because we'll look at the behaviors of folks at a different point?
Yeah, to me, I guess at over 30 years, it's become natural, right? That you don't realize that you're probing, learning, and building the relationship. So as natural as it can be, listen, most people love to talk about their kids or their spouse or their pet or their whatever makes them tick. It's amazing, and you find that common touch point. I have felt is now being 53 years old, you go through the gamut. As at one point you were treated as this young up and coming, oh yeah, you could be my son in these meetings, because you're primarily dealing with decision makers, or probably in the 50 to 65 range, on significant money for the most part. You can skew a little bit older or younger. So at one point I was like taken under the wing as, oh, this could be my son or my nephew. But then as you mature, this is my peer. Oh my gosh, my kid's looking to get into this school or got into that school. And then you bring my 3 kids into the conversation. And as much as everyone loves talking about their kids, I love talking about my kids, and you never know where it connects the dots. And my oldest son, Graham, just graduated from the University of Delaware, where my wife and I met and went, with a business degree and concentration in sport management. And, I was so excited. He followed in somewhat of my footsteps, and he's working with a good friend of mine on projects. But over the years and months, he's seen me in action, and in recent months, we started our own consulting business on the side. Something that we'll have for each other to help him build his resume, and to get to really see me a little bit more in action, because in life, right, it's the toughest thing breaking into anything, whether you're 22 years old looking to break into the workforce, or we're breaking into podcasts, or I'm breaking into golf, which is a scary sight. Breaking into something is tough. And so my son Graham and I, we've really enjoyed this opportunity of sharing a common bond and a common interest, where some clients have now gotten to know my son. And I wouldn't have done it if Graham was not going to keep the family name or the family brand or to the highest of levels. He's watched me enough, and he's been around greatness since he was little. He just didn't realize it, that we're able to do some projects together in a fun way. And as I said, my first job was really holding Billie Jean's water bottle and Sharpie, and he had the pleasure of doing it 22 years later, of doing it this summer. And so it's all full circle. And if you can't help your kid, then who can you help? And listen, I was on the phone with a very significant donor who just retired, has more money than he knows what to do with.
Must be nice.
Must be nice. One day.
One day.
And just in the casual conversation, he was talking about going to see his adult kids. And, I brought up, I'm going to play a little tennis with, I guess now my adult son, who's 22. And he started probing questions about him. And so, we're doing this together. And he stopped. He said, "Jeff, that's the best thing I've learned about you, that you would do this with your son, because I did this with my son when he got out of school in finance." And he joked he's finally off the payroll.
Absolutely.
He's on his own. But that was a new bond. I've known this individual for a good 5, 6, 7 years. But until you have that conversation, we had that mutual respect of, it's like, yeah, Jeff, that's what you're supposed to do, as opposed to anything else.
Yeah, you help, reach back, pull forward, and help the next person who's coming along, which is utterly fantastic. And when we come back, what to do when you're partnering with someone who isn't other people focused and isn't interested in building relationships, but the two of you really need relationships to get the deal done. We'll talk about that. And then after that, we're going to do a little sports gossip that you definitely do not want to miss. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Tired of your elevator pitch falling flat? Are you getting polite O's and how nice is instead of really? Tell me more? It's time to level up. Introducing Pro Tip Partners, proven formula for crafting elevator pitches that ignite curiosity and prompt follow-up questions. Whether you're in tech, finance, healthcare, or any industry, our quick online course will boost your confidence, help you tailor your message, and sharpen your value proposition. Ready to stand out? Visit protippartners.com to access the course. Follow us on social media and explore all of our resources. Don't settle for boring pitches. Be memorable, be impactful, be you.
Are you ready to elevate your team's performance? Introducing Pro Tip Partners. With over 20 years of experience in enablement and learning and development, we've helped businesses like yours achieve amazing growth outcomes. Our focus areas include sales enablement and effectiveness, manager and leadership development, and our unique improv for business workshops, helping your teams enhance their confidence and ability to embrace the unknown. For your customer-facing teams, we provide professional communication training to make presentations engaging and interactive. At Pro Tip Partners, all our workshops are engaging, fun, and build on best practices for proven business growth. For companies needing a fractional executive to jumpstart new initiatives without increasing headcount, we're your go-to partner. Visit us at protippartners.com or call 301-4PROTIP for a free needs assessment. ProTip Partners, elevating performance, empowering growth.
You do genuinely like to ask questions out of curiosity. You're very other person focused, etc., which for what you do is a fantastic core skill that's clearly innate in you. There are others who are not. So not as an insult, there are people who are narcissists out there. There are people who are very me focused. And in the sales terms of what are their WIFMs, the what's in it for me is they're thinking about themselves, not the me of the customer. So have you ever had to coach or prepare someone, an executive and the like, where you've had to get them ready to be other person focused? What does that look like where you're giving them the backstory? Okay, so we're going to go meet so-and-so, Bob or Mary, and these are the things personally about them. You should ask these things, or, is there something like that? Or do you just say, you know what, let me do the talking. You just be the person who's here being the executive. What does that look like when you're working with someone who very clearly is not as good at this or cares to be good at this like you?
Yeah, it's a great question, Carlin. You always want to bring your colleagues, right? It's a team effort in anything you do. It's never just about me. It's about us. And you try to prep your colleagues, but you got to learn on your own. You got to see it. I can tell you how to hit a forehand 10 times over, 100 times over, 1,000 times over. But until you're in a match and you're hitting forehands consistently, it's just one of those things you have to do. And so I prep them the best you can as a colleague going into this, knowing that, hey, Joe and Sally love to talk about this or about themselves, and you got to go with it. Find your connecting dots best you can, but you got to learn on your own. You got to play more matches to get better, as opposed to taking more lessons how to hit low to high.
Wow. Okay. So then if you need the elevated voice of the senior executive to come in and for whatever reason, it's get out there and I hope you swim. I mean, you're going to give them, you're going to put on some floaties.
Yeah. I got
So
a
I know
couple
I've switched
floaties
metaphors
and
here.
I'm standing by the side of the pool. I got it.
Yeah.
And you're not going to drown,
Yeah.
and you're not going to strike out.
Okay.
But you might take a deep breath, and you
Mhm.
might have 2 strikes on you in the first inning here. But it's building character, and it's just you have to do it. I always say, listen.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, listen. At 53 and gray hair, it gives you a little bit of sense of maturity when you walk into any room, that you have some experience in something, usually in life, that unfortunately you just can't teach sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I guess this is for those who are very me focused and that is a quality of yours. If that is getting in the way of your road to greatness, you might need to learn or fake being more interested and curious about others. But I think the awareness of where you sit on that spectrum of being able to be other person focused and other person aware may make it easier to morph. And if it is fake it till you make it, or teaching yourself, hey, ask more questions of the other person, then maybe that's the thing. Yeah, it's unfortunate you can't teach curiosity. You can just make people aware of the fact that they're not curious. And then it's on you to try and figure out how to be more curious and force yourself to ask more questions instead of just, and one of the phrases when I'm doing in presentation training and we talk about interactive presentation so that you aren't just showing up and throwing up.
Yeah, good
It's
one.
right. It's make sure that you are actually going in and you're learning as much as you are sharing, or actually you're learning more than you are sharing, so that it can be a more productive conversation. All right, so I can't have you here and drop names like Billie Jean King and Shonda Rubin and James Blake
Yeah.
and Elton John, Sir
Oh,
Elton
no,
John,
sure, Elton.
without saying who else can we gossip about? In a nice way. I want to know, are there others who are out there? And I know you're in the sports arena and certainly and in tennis, but we have a whole new crop of American tennis players now who are coming up. Tiafo is my new guy because he's down here
Yeah.
or from Maryland and the DMV area. What inside scoop do we have? Who's the nicest? Who's the easiest to work with? Who's has the best personality off the court? We can see some of them on the court, but who has, what are those things
Yeah.
that people don't know? Because I feel like, yes, we can talk about the road to greatness, but when you rub elbows with the people you rub elbows with, we should gossip a little.
Yeah, no, totally. Listen, and the saying is, celebrities are they're just like us. They really are when in their deep core with their insecurities or their positive vibes and whatnot. Again, you mentioned up and comings, Francis Tiafo is just an unbelievable kid, young person, right? They're all kids to us now. But
Yes, because I
I
have kids older than him.
yeah,
Ah,
right. So they're kids. But I helped him and his team form his foundation, the Francis Tiafo Fund, that he does in partnership with the USTA Foundation and JTCC in College Park, Maryland. And so I've gotten to know him and the circle of people around him very well. When I say down to earth, he can finish practice and shoot hoops with the kids that happen to be at the park at the club, and it's just an older buddy as opposed to this larger
tennis,
than life
great.
tennis
Yeah.
tennis great. And you got to give him a lot of credit. He's entering the prime of his career and he's thinking about a foundation where most athletes think about their foundation. What's my legacy when I'm done?
Yeah.
He's got a pretty powerful stick now because listen, hopefully he wins the US Open or Wimbledon down the road and he holds up the trophy and said, I've been doing this for a while, as opposed to, yeah, in 5 years, I'm going to start this great foundation. So it's been nice to kind of get into his world a little bit and see how down to earth, and the people that surround him are very down to earth as well. I think Martina gets a bad rap of just kind of being this stoic, fierce competitor. As I've gotten to know her over the years, she really is down to earth. She's a competitor. She's a jock. She loves sports. I remember she was playing world team tennis on the Delaware Smash with us, and she was just retired. And the aura of Martina Navratilova, still to this day, when I see her and you take a deep breath, and it's freaking Martina. And she just retired. She's playing in world team tennis. Has 2 men and 2 women on each team, and I was taking the team to do some sponsor meet and greets here at the DuPont Country Club and different parties. And she was still in the players' lounge, and she's like, "Jeff, how come you don't have me doing anything?" And I'm like, "Well, I really didn't want to bother you, Martina. Like, you're Martina." And she said, "No, I'm part of the team. And if they're doing something, who might be the 300th ranked player in the world, if they're doing something, I'm doing something. I put this jacket on and I'm part of the team, and I'll never forget that." And so I treat her like everybody else. I do have to take my deep breath and around her because she's this unbelievable aura. But she told me that early on is treat me as part of the team, and it registered, right? You learn something about somebody. She's into sports. She's into team, and she really wanted to be treated as
Equal, the same as
as
everybody
everybody
else,
else.
right? She's
Yeah.
not sitting back on her. Do you know who I am? I
Yeah.
love that
Yeah.
phrase.
So it's pretty cool. And you mentioned the Elton Johns. It's a different world than the tennis players. Elton John's an internationally recognized megastar. That's not even a superstar. He's the highest of highest levels.
Yes.
And so I love watching he and Billy interact, but managing his his tennis celebrity fundraiser for 10 years. You got to see the inner workings of him, and the 2 security guards, a hairdresser that travels with him, a tennis coach that travels with him. There's the definition of an entourage. You're never around that, and you're like, holy
Wow.
smokes, like this is the real deal. The headpiece is in, and you're moving a superstar from place to place, or car to car, or private plane to private plane, and so I love watching that interaction. I was, I had a front row seat to that for sure. And I'll tell you one funny story about, speaking of front seats. We were in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Billie Jean and Elton got in the back of an SUV, and I was not supposed to be the driver for point A to point B, but a few, let's call them grenades, went off early in the day, and there needed to be my boss, Alana Kloss, recognized there was a lot going on, and that the driver needed to be someone of a point of reason, or someone that Billie could be comfortable with, as opposed to just a random driver. And so point A to point B was okay, but we get in the back of this SUV, and Billie's obviously very comfortable with it, talking, and she's like, Elton, do you know Jeff? And he's like, no, and I'm trying to concentrate on driving from A to B. It's a horrible, when I say a horrible rainstorm, I wasn't prepared to drive. I don't have my glasses on, and I must be hitting every curb, and I'm watching them bounce up and down in the back seat, and there's a security guard in the passenger seat, a security guard in the trunk, and I'm like, God, I am sorry, I'm hitting bushes, I'm doing everything you physically could wrong, and Billie had to make the conversation comfortable and said, Elton, Jeff runs the event. He's really not our driver, but he's doing us a favor because he really wants us to have a great time at this next thing. Just to, I think, put him at ease, that we adjusted. Yes. We champions adjust. We adjusted a little bit. Because imagine if it was just a stranger, a driver that.
Yes, and she couldn't make wrong. The connection.
Yes, so there was a personal connection. There's a relationship driving, and that I'm comfortable. So if I'm comfortable, Elton, you should be comfortable. Even though it is a monsoon and this kid just hit every freaking curb you can think of, at least I'm comfortable with him. And so, those moments you just kind of treasure, and you put in the memory boxes. Like, how often do you get to do that?
Literally never.
Never, right?
Moment.
Although it's stressful and, a tough 2 minutes for me, I'm like, gosh, that was pretty cool. I got through it.
Because as people get new jobs and they have to do the whole get to know you thing, and then you have to either do 2 truths and a lie, or tell me about yourself and what's your fun fact. I drove Elton John and Billie Jean King and hit every single bush, and they didn't jump out of the car, right? Like, I mean,
I'm still alive to tell about it, and we can laugh about it to this day, and I won't be driving him ever again, and so it's those types of things. I've got another good one for you, Carly, just because I think Bob and Mike Bryan are going to be inducted into the International Tennis Hall of Fame next year in 2025.
Nice.
And they played, we actually mirror our careers together. They started, around 19 years old, they were playing world team tennis, and I'm about 5 years older, so 20 or 6 years older, 25, and I'm running the Delaware Smash. And you heard about these Bob and Mike Bryan, these Bryan brothers coming up, these junior champion nationals. They had not won a Grand Slam. They had not won a professional tournament yet. And they came in, the nicest guys in the world, 19-year-old guys, brothers that just joined at the hip. And it was my first really job. And we were all just trying to figure it out. We didn't have to say anything to each other, but we just looked at each other like they're trying to figure out the pro tour. I'm trying to figure out what the heck I'm doing, running a world team tennis team. But fast forward, they're now 46. They just had a birthday over these.
It just made me feel really old, but go ahead.
Amazing, these guys, right? But our careers have mirrored each other, where I've probably done 100 events with them over this 25 years, from team tennis to USTA events to local fundraisers, and they haven't changed one bit from those 19-year-old kids that we met. They're now parents. They've got kids they're raising. They relate so well with my kids. They treat them so unbelievable when they see them. But we all started when we were kids. We weren't married. We didn't have kids, and our careers kind of mirrored it. Now I haven't won any Grand Slams, and I'm not going into the Hall of Fame, but our careers have mirrored each other. And I would say those two I got to know before they were the Bryan brothers, the GOATs of the tennis world, certainly 109 doubles titles. I knew them when, and they were so down to earth then, and they're probably even more down to earth now. And so it's, those are the fun things you get to learn. But from a relationship building, I feel like I could pick up the phone if I need them, and they can do the same with me. Mm-hmm. And that's what relationships are about. It's not feeling funny about it as, oh, should I call? If we call it, it's legitimate, or text. Mm-hmm. These kids these days only text, but yeah, I think it's gosh, I can't get in touch with my kids, and they're, I know the phone's ringing, but if I text them, they'll get back. But
yes.
It's cool knowing those stories of seeing how people change or don't change as they hit these pinnacles of sports. But it's been pretty fun.
Nice. Very, very nice. Well, we are just about to the end of our time together here, and I will ask you the same thing I ask everyone else. Is there anything I didn't ask that I should have?
I'll leave you with this tidbit to keep going on is relationships are the key to life, but they're not always easy. You have to work at them, and both sides have to work on them. And it doesn't have to be 50-50 all the time. Sometimes it has to skew 75-25, but it can't be 90-10, or the relationship peters out. Yeah. And sometimes that happens, and you have to be able to take a deep breath. It's okay, even though it's not okay. It will be okay. But relationships are the key to life, but they do take work. They're not as easy as sometimes you and I might make it feel. Mm-hmm. They do take work.
They take work, and they take time and patience, right? In all of that. So Jeff Harrison, thank you so much for joining us today on the Road to Greatness and sharing your road to greatness. We appreciate it. And then also the closeout with some fun stories that I actually are very new to me. So, but I will smile a lot as I think about you driving a car.
Never get in the backseat with me in a rainstorm.
In a rainstorm, I will totally not do that. All right. So in every other instance, however, the relationship is strong. So Jeff Harrison, thank you very much for joining the Road to Greatness, and we'll see you all next time.
Thanks.
This has been The Road to Greatness. Remember to subscribe, follow, and share, and I'll see you next time.